Hey guys! So today I'm going to be doing my Adventure April wrap-up video, and for the month of April I was reading all adventure themed books. But before I get into that, I just want to say thank you so much to all of my new subscribers. I recently, just last week, reached 1,000. I'm honestly so overwhelmed, I can't even believe it. I also want to give a big shout out to Reagan over at Prue's Project, because without her, I'm pretty sure that this wouldn't have happened, at least not anytime soon. She actually did a booktuber shout out video and she mentioned me and a bunch of other amazing booktubers, so I will leave the link to that video down below so you can check it out. There are so many that are just so fantastic, and I can't even believe that she put me on that list with those amazing booktubers. So thank you so much to Reagan, and thank you so much to all of you guys. I can't wait to get to know you, and I can't wait to make more videos for you guys. I'm so excited about it, in fact, that I am planning a giveaway. I'm thinking of some things right now of what I'm gonna do. I haven't fully made up my mind, but it'll be happening soon, probably within the next week or two, and I'm really excited about it. Okay, so now on to my Adventure April wrap-up. The first book that I read for Adventure April was The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I actually buddy read this with Sarah over at Noodle Bamboo. I will leave the link to her channel down below. But we buddy read this and we tweeted a bit, and we actually started, I think the first or second week of April, started reading it, and then took a break for about a week and a half and then finished it up around the end of April. Love Bilbo. He's such a great character. He's so funny, and just reading about the hobbits and their gigantic appetite and all of the adventures that Bilbo went on with the rest of Gandalf's recruit. I will admit that there were some slow parts in it, and Sarah and I actually agreed on that. Because I read it over the month of April and it was like sporadically read, I do remember it, but not enough to like do a review on it, so I didn't actually do a written review. I just rated it. If you love fantasy, if you love adventure stories, The Hobbit is for you. It's for you. The next book that I read in April was Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. I have mentioned my love for Alice in Wonderland and how I collect Alice in Wonderland books and materials and all of that stuff, but I've actually never read the entire book. I feel like part of me was putting it off because I've heard that some people really love it and I've heard that some people hate it, and I just didn't want to weaken my love at all for this story because I was just a little worried about finally picking it up and finishing it, but I loved it. It's very similar to the Disney movie. There was only like a couple of parts in it that weren't in the Disney movie, and those parts actually I noticed were a little bit more prominent in the Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland movie that came out a couple years ago. And also, if you guys play the game at all, American McGee's Alice, there were parts in the book that were featured in the video game actually. It was really cool to kind of see the material that inspired that video game just taking place in this and reading through it and getting to know the character. I think I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, if not like 4.5 out of 5 stars. There wasn't a whole lot that I didn't love about this book. The next book that I read in April was actually a short story from Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales, and it was The Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid is another classic turned Disney movie that everyone knows about and loves. I know I haven't been going into too much detail about each of these books, and the reason for that is because, you know, they're so well known that I feel like I don't really need to go on and on about them. But I will say the Disney movie stayed pretty true to it. It follows Little Mermaid, though she's not actually given the name Ariel in this book. She's just known as the Little Mermaid. In this story, mermaids don't have souls. They can live longer than humans. They live up to about 300 years, but when they die, they're gone. They're gone forever because they don't have an immortal soul. And one of the things that the Little Mermaid is so fascinated with is the fact that humans do have immortal souls, and once they die, they continue to live on. And the Little Mermaid obviously really longs for that, and she also longs to be in love, and she's in love with the prince, who is a human, so she wants to be human. And there is a sea witch. She doesn't have a name in this book, but you know, Ursula is the character in the Disney movie, and she makes a similar trade with the Little Mermaid, but in this it's so much more gruesome what she takes from her, how she takes her voice. I was like, this is seriously a children's story? Really? It's awesome though. The next book that I read in April was actually another short story from Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales. And the one that I read was The Snow Queen, which is, as we all know, or at least a lot of us know, honestly, there were not a lot of similarities between Frozen and The Snow Queen. Apart from there being like snow and a reindeer, I was like, what? What is this? Okay, so I'm gonna try to explain this. So in the Snow Queen, there is a troll, but he is actually an evil troll. And what he does is he creates this mirror. And when anyone looks into the mirror, they see distorted, gruesome versions of the truth. This mirror gets broken up into millions and millions of pieces and kind of flies throughout everywhere and ends up hitting Kai, one of the main characters, in the eye. And I did not mean for that to rhyme. So the piece of the mirror gets into Kai's eye. Everything looks distorted. Everything is the opposite of what it is. Good is bad. His friends are no longer his friends. And he becomes a very unhappy boy. From there, Kai runs away from home, which leaves his best friend Gerda alone. There is somewhat of a similarity there between Frozen and the Snow Queen now that I'm thinking about it, because Kai kind of takes on characteristics of Elsa, where Gerda takes on characteristics of Anna, who wants to rescue Kai and find him and bring him back home, which is obviously very similar to Anna and that whole storyline. So there is a similarity there, but honestly from there it's just so different. The Snow Queen is actually evil. She takes Kai in and she keeps him and gives him these kisses that make him want to stay with her and forget about his family and his friends. But Gerda is not willing to let Kai slip away that easily, much like Anna and Elsa, and I just really love that aspect of the story because she is so determined to find her best friend. She's determined to bring him back home and to make everything right again. It is an interesting story, but overall I have to say I enjoyed Frozen much more because, you know, there was music and songs and dancing and Olaf the Snowman. The last book that I read in April was Dorothy Must Die by Danielle Page. This book was so good. It was so much more than what I thought it was in one sense, and then in another sense, I'd heard a lot of people really enjoy this book. Jillian over at Bookish and Nerdy adores this book. Just knowing that she loved it so much gave me so much hope for it, and with each chapter I read, I was just like, oh, this is so good, this is so good, it's getting so good, so good. Having said that, there has been a lot of controversy with this book lately on BookTube. I'm not going to get into a huge amount of detail about it. Instead, I will link Jillian's video down below. She goes into a lot of detail about everything that's going on with this book right now, and it's really great video, really important, and I think that you guys should take a look at it because it's important to educate yourself about this sorts of things that are going on with publishing, and not everyone is going to find a lot of interest in that. A lot of people, you know, when you read books, you just want to read the book and you don't want to go into the politics and everything, and I definitely understand that, but I feel like if you're a booktuber especially, you might want to educate yourself on what's going on with this book. It might not make you think any differently about it, or it might make you think, huh, wow, I'm really glad that I know that now because I can kind of make my own decision on where I'm going to go next with the trilogy. Dorothy Must Die follows a young girl named Amy Gum, and Amy, she's stuck in a world that she doesn't want to be in. Her mom is an alcoholic. She lives in a trailer park. She doesn't have any friends. She is basically picked on at school by the popular girl, and the guy that she has a crush on is pretty much just using her to get her homework. It happens. But similarly to how it happened in a famous movie that we're all familiar with, a tornado whips through Amy's area of Kansas and ends up taking her trailer to Oz. But one of the major differences is that the person who is now running this run-down, awful version of Oz is the person who was originally the savior of Oz, Dorothy. From there, Amy makes her way through Oz with the help of a couple of side characters that I really adored. Amy is now given the task that Dorothy was so many years ago. She is to be Oz's savior, but in order to do that, she has to go through quite a few things along the way. The story was so great. It was so good. It is not your typical YA. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was just very well written. I loved Danielle Page's writing. I loved all of the elements. I loved all of the twists and turns, and I loved the descriptions and the gore. It was, you know, it was pretty dark. It was very different from what I was expecting, and I really liked that. I'm not going to go into the controversy about this book, but I will just say that despite everything that I've heard, and there are some terrible things that I've learned, I do think that I'm going to continue reading this trilogy because no matter what, even though I am supporting the publishing company Full Fathom 5, I'm also supporting Danielle Page, and I think that's really important because this is her story, these are her words, and I really want to continue with the trilogy. Alright guys, so that's all for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. In the comments below, you guys can let me know what your favorite reads of April were because I would really like to know.